Hello guys, this is Vamshi Krishna. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video you are going to learn about the central nervous system. So the first one is the brain structure. So the brain has the three main parts. Okay. So the brain has three main parts. Those are cerebellum and brainstem. So firstly we will see a brief introduction regarding cerebrum. So it is the largest part of the brain and is composed of right and left hemisphere. So the brain is divided into right and left parts. Those are called hemisphere. It performs higher functions like interpreting touch, vision, hearing, as well as speech, reasoning, emotions, learning, and fine control of movements. So these are the functions of cerebrum. And the next part is the cerebellum. So it is located under the cerebrum. Its function is to coordinate the muscle movements, maintain the posture and balance. And the last one is the brain stem. So the brain stem is relay center connecting the cerebrum and the cerebellum to the spinal cord. So it is connection between the cerebrum and cerebellum to the spinal cord. So it performs many automatic functions like breathing, heart rate, body temperature, wake and sleep cycle, digestion, sneezing, coughing, vomiting, and swallowing. So these are the functions of brain stem. So this is a little brief description regarding the brain. Then question is parts of the brain stem are. So options are midbrain, pons and medulla, pons and medulla, midbrain and medulla, pons, cerebellum and medulla. So the right one is option A, midbrain, pons and medulla. So these three parts are come under the brain stem. So A is the right answer. So the next question is functions of cerebellum is all except is not relating. Options are maintenance of muscle tone, maintenance of posture, equilibrium, and hearing. So the right one is hearing. So hearing is not the function of cerebrum. So these three functions are managed by the cerebellum. Sorry, this hearing is not function of the cerebellum. These three functions are maintained by the cerebellum. The right one is the option D. The next one is the layers of the brain. So the first layer is the outermost layer is a dura mater. It is a strong and a thick membrane that closely line inside the skull. So it is present lower surface, inferior surface of the skull bone. So it has the two layers. The first one is a periosteal layer and a meningeal layer. So these two layers are present with the dura mater. So the next one is a arachnoid matter. So it is a thin layer web-like membrane that covers the entire brain. Okay, so arachnoid matter is covers the whole brain. So the space between the dura mater and arachnoid membranes is called subdural space. Okay, so subdural space between the dura mater and arachnoid matter. So the last one is the pia mater. So the pia mater is the highly presence of the blood vessels that reach deep into the brain. The space between the arachnoid and the pia mater is called subarachnoid space. Okay, subarachnoid space. So it is here where the cerebrospinal fluid baths and cushion the brain. So the CSF is present between the present in the subarachnoid space. It is the space between the arachnoid matter and the pia mater, that is subarachnoid space. The CSF is present between the subarachnoid space. The next question is a sequence of meninges from outer to inner. Options are dura mater, arachnoid mater, pia mater, dura mater, arachnoid mater, arachnoid matter, pia mater and dura mater, pia mater and arachnoid matter. The right one is option A. This is outermost, middle and innermost. dura matter, arachnoid matter, and pia matter. So this is the right one. The next one is the number of pairs of spinal nerves that exist from the spinal cord. So how many number of the spinal nerves are present and exist from the spinal cord? Options are 31, 33, 24, and 30. The right one is option A. 31 pairs of spinal nerves will exist from the spinal cord. The next one is a client admitted in the neuro ICU with the cervical spinal cord injury. So, what is the greatest risk of this client? So, what is the risk the patient with the cervical spinal cord injury? So, the options are neurogenic shock, respiratory compromise, and paralytic ileus and stress ulcer. The right one is respiratory compromise. So the respiratory difficulty. Okay, so all these kinds of problems they may present the patient with the cervical spinal cord injury. So the B is the right answer. The next one is the number of pairs. This is not pets, pairs. So the number of pairs of cranial nerves. Okay, this is cranial nerves. So how many number of pairs of cranials are there? Options are option A 14, option B 12, option C 16, option D 11. So the right one is option B. Cranial nerves are present 12 pairs. The number of pairs of cranial nerves are 12. So we will see what are all those. So the first one is the olfactory nerve. So olfactory nerve is work on the smell, okay, smelling. And the optic nerve it is for the sight, I mean vision, and the oculomotor for the movement of the eyeball and the pupil. Trochlear is moves. It is also work with the movement of the eyeball, and glossopharyngeal it is work on the taste and swallowing, and trigeminal is the face sensation, and absent is the movement of the eye. Facial is the movement of the face and salivation. Vestibulocochlear is for the hearing and balancing, and vagus nerve is responsible for the heart rate. This is important. You may get the question. Vagus nerve is responsible for the heart rate and digestion, and the accessory nerve is the movement of the head. Hypoglossal is work on the movement of the tongue. So these are the 12 cranial nerves. The first one is the olfactory, optic, oculomotor, trochlear, and glossopharyngeal. Trigeminal, absence, facial, and vestibulocochlear, and vagus, accessory, and hypoglossal. So the shortcut is the short the shortcut is the triple O TGT AFWAH. So this is the total 12 number of cranial nerves. The next question is what is the name of 10th cranial nerve? So you may give the answer. That is vagus nerve. So vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. So vagus nerve is responsible for the heart rate and digestion. Okay. So the next one is normal cerebrospinal fluid contain all among the following except one. Options are red blood cells, white blood cells, insulin, and proteins. So the right one is RBC, red blood cells. So red blood cells are doesn't present in the CSF fluid. Okay, so it will not present in the CSF. So the next point is centers in brain. So what are all the centers and what are all the functions of those centers we will see. So first one is frontal lobe. So, in the frontal lobe, it is responsible for the personality of the person, behavior and emotions, and judgment, planning, problem solving, and speaking and writing, body movements, intelligence, concentration, and self awareness. So, these are all the functions are managed by the frontal lobe. I mean, so these functions are coming from the frontal lobe. It is the front side of the body. I mean, brain. Sorry. And the next parietal lobe. So these parietal lobes are present beside of the brain. So this is responsible for the interpret the language and words, sense of touch, pain, and temperature, interprets the signals from the vision, hearing, motor, and sensory and memory, and spatial and visual perception. So these are all the functions are from the parietal lobe. And the next one is the occipital lobe. So the occipital lobe is the back part of the brain, and it is responsible for the mainly vision, that is color, light, and movement. So occipital is responsible for the vision. The next one is the temporal lobe. So this lobe is functions are understanding the language, memory, and hearing, and sequencing and organization. So these are the functions are made come from the temporal lobe. So these are the some lobes of the brain. So we will see the next question. Which division of the nervous system initiate the response of fight and flight? Options are parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, somatic nervous system, none of the above. The right one is option B. So sympathetic nervous system, it is also known as otherwise the response of fight or flight. So we will see the central nervous system parts. Okay. So firstly, central nervous system is divided into the peripheral and central. Okay. And again, peripheral is divided into the autonomic, somatic, visceral. And this autonomic nervous system again divided into the sympathetic, parasympathetic, and enteric nervous system. So we will see a briefly regarding each one. So first one is the peripheral nervous system. So it is refers to the parts of the nervous system outside the brain. So it is not closely related to the brain and the spinal cord. So it includes the cranial nerves, spinal nerves, and it is peripheral nervous system. It refers to the part of the nervous system outside the brain and the spinal cord. I mean, so it is related to the brain and the spinal cord, the work which is origin from the brain and spinal cord, but it is spread all over the body. It includes the cranial nerves which are arise from the brain and the spinal nerves and their roots and branches. Okay, so these roots and branches, peripheral nerves, and neuromuscular junctions. So these are present all over the body in the form of roots and branches of the nerves and peripheral nerves and neuromuscular junctions. Neuromuscular junction is nothing but the connection between the neuron and muscle. The next one is the central nervous system. So it consists of brain and spinal cord, and it controls the thought, movement, emotion. So as well as breathing, heart rate, hormone regulation, and body temperature. So these are the functions of central nervous system. Central nervous system is nothing but mainly brain and spinal cord. So the next one is the part of the nervous system that controls the muscle and internal organs such as heart, blood vessels, lungs, stomach and intestine, and glands such as salivary glands and sweat glands. So these are all related to the central nervous system. So the next one is a somatic nervous system. So it consists of the nerves that go to the skin and the muscle. So somatic is nothing but muscles and involved in the conscious activities. So whatever we do the conscious activities like dancing, okay, fighting, whatever it may be. So it is all managed by the somatic nervous system. So it is also known as the energy nervous system. It is a somatic. So the next one is a visceral nervous system. So it has the several levels of automatical organization and individual viscera, including the heart and intestine. Visceral is nothing but internal organs. It's related to the internal heart and intestine, some other structures. Then the sympathetic nervous system can accelerate the heart rate, widening of the bronchial passages, decreasing of motility of the large intestine, constrict the blood vessels, and increase the peristalsis. Peristalsis, it is nothing but intestinal movements in the esophagus and cause for the pupillary dilatation and piloerection or goosebumps, okay, goosebumps and perspiration, that is nothing but sweating and a raising of the blood vessels. So these are all managed or controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. So we don't have any control over these structures. So these are all related to the sympathetic. And the next one is a parasympathetic. So parasympathetic regulates the rest and digestion and functions mainly. Purpose of the parasympathetic nervous system is to conserve the energy to be used later or regulate the bodily functions like digestion and urination. So this is the parasympathetic nervous system. So the last one is the enteric nervous system. So this is a quasi, I mean, it is not complete autonomous part of the nervous system, and it includes the neural circuits and controlling of motor functions, local blood flow, mucosal transportation and secretion, and modulate the immune and endocrine functions. So enteric system is work on the secretions, mucosal transportation and immunity and endocrinal functions. So this is the central nervous system parts.